The room stank of burnt ozone and blood. Alien soldiers laughed in a tongue that no human voice could copy, sharp and metallic, like broken glass grinding on steel. Inside the ruined research station, they stood over human bodies, poking at the remains like children bored with their toys. "Legends," one of them rasped through a translator box, kicking over a shattered helmet. "The humans love their little stories. Heroes, gods, invincible soldiers, lies." Another, broader and scaled in dark armor, picked up a blood-stained data tablet and tapped it. A hologram flickered to life. Images of Earth's old war icons. Captain Sienna Cortez, who once held a Martian front against 10,000 enemy bots. The ghost of Tokyo, a cyber assassin said to have vanished mid-air after slitting a prime minister's throat. And beneath them all, the shadowy profile of Project Revenant, a Black Ops unit that vanished 10 years ago without a trace. Legends, all of them, or so the galaxy believed. "Their stories end here," the Scaled One sneered, "just like their species." But in the shadows of the broken command room, a weak cough broke the silence. The alien soldiers froze. Then, with a unified hiss, they turned toward the sound. A cracked support beam had fallen across the floor near the server stacks. Under it, bloodied and burned, a single human soldier lay twitching. His eyes were barely open, chest heaving shallowly. A smaller alien stepped forward, weapon raised. "Survivor, should I terminate?" The Scaled leader motioned for silence and approached. He crouched beside the man, scanning his vitals with a wrist-implanted device. "Barely alive. What were you trying to protect here, human?" he asked, more amused than curious. The man coughed again, a smear of blood trickling down his chin. His name patch was half burned, but the letters JAX could still be read. "You think?" "It's over," Jax whispered, his voice like gravel. "You think we're just stories?" The alien gave a barking laugh. "You are stories, and your story ends here. Earth will fall just like your outposts." Jax smiled. It was a weak, broken thing, but there was something chilling in it. "They're real," he whispered. The alien frowned. "What?" "The legends. The revenants. They're not gone." Laughter erupted from the others, echoing harshly through the wrecked facility. "Another lie," one spat. "The humans keep their myths warm while they die." But Jax's smile widened as a tear slipped from his eye. Not sadness. Something else. Pride. Maybe even triumph. "You should have left us alone," he rasped. Suddenly, the server room lights flickered. Then the emergency red strobes snapped to blue, an override no one had touched. A mechanical whirring sound came from the far end of the base, followed by a low hum like a beast waking up. Every alien turned toward it, weapons raised. "What is that?" the leader growled. Jax's eyes closed. His final breath escaped his lips like a prayer. "They're here." The lights went out. Then the screaming began. The base plunged into darkness. Not just a power outage, something more, something worse. Even alien tech, tuned to detect in the infraspectrum, couldn't cut through the black. The Scaled commander barked orders. "Switch to biovision, defensive formation." But the younger soldier, the one who had mocked the legends, was already gone. One moment he stood scanning the darkness. The next, his body hit the floor with a sickening crack. No scream, no struggle, just gone. The others spun toward the sound. They fired blindly, streaks of violet plasma lighting up the gloom in quick flashes. And in each burst, something moved between the pulses, fast, silent, and wrong. Not quite visible. Not quite there. "Contact! I saw—" another alien shouted, but his voice cut off mid-sentence. Something thudded to the ground beside the commander. A helmet, black, featureless, matte-finished, rolled to a stop at his feet. Human-made, still warm. He felt something ancient crawl up his spine. Fear, yes, but deeper than that. A recognition he didn't understand. A primal whisper in the mind that screamed, "Predator!" "Fall back!" he snarled. "Fall back to the dropship!" They moved as one, disciplined but shaken. As they reached the exit corridor, they found the door sealed. Not by damage, by lockdown. The same small alien from before slammed its clawed hand against the console. "It's been manually overridden, from inside." "Impossible! No one's alive!" another snapped. But they were wrong. From the vent above them, something dropped without a sound. It didn't attack immediately. It just stood there, outlined dimly in the glow of emergency lights flickering back on. Not fully, just enough to show its silhouette. A human. Or something that used to be one. Tall, armored head to toe in a suit of black armor with glowing blue veins running like cracks through stone. No insignia, no identification, no eyes behind the visor, just the chilling hum of something alive beneath cold metal. The commander raised his weapon. "Identify yourself!" The figure tilted its head slightly, like it was confused why anyone would speak. Then it moved. In less than a second, one alien lost its weapon arm, blood spraying the walls like a red mist. Another was pinned to the ceiling with a blade humming with white energy, vibrating at a pitch that shattered nearby glass. "Retreat!" the commander howled. But there was no retreat. The vents above them hissed, then cracked open one by one. Shadows poured out. More figures, armored, silent, inhuman in speed, human in intent. The revenants. They were supposed to be dead, disbanded, disgraced. Nothing but myths passed around Earth's colonies to keep morale high. But here they were, not just one, all of them. One by one, the aliens were dismantled, not killed in rage or panic, but methodically, efficiently, like a tactical exercise. The commander fought back. He was no rookie. He sliced one of the revenants across the chest. Metal screeched, sparks flew, but the figure didn't even flinch. Instead, it grabbed his blade and crushed it in one hand. "You should have believed him," the revenant's voice growled through a modulated mask, deep and cold. "Jax warned you." With a final slam, the commander's body hit the wall hard enough to crack the plating. He slid down, dazed, coughing his strange blood. Around him, the bodies of his squad were scattered like broken dolls. And then, silence. The revenants didn't speak. They didn't cheer. They just stood there, staring at the last alien alive. The commander laughed, choking. "You think this means anything? The war's already won. Earth will burn." A revenant stepped closer. "Not if we burn first." Then the lights went dark again, and he screamed. Hours later, the smoke still hadn't cleared. A rescue beacon finally pinged from orbit, picked up by a patrol vessel belonging to the Zarketh Dominion, one of the alien empires leading the invasion against Earth and her colonies. The patrol ship touched down cautiously, scanners running full-spectrum sweeps. The soldiers aboard were elites, trained to handle human resistance cells and rebel insurgents, but nothing could prepare them for what they found inside. The base was drenched in silence. Not a sound. Not a single energy signature. No plasma residue from weapons. Just the smell of charred metal, blood, and something even more unsettling. Ozone mixed with burnt flesh and melted armor. The squad split into pairs as they moved cautiously down the corridors. The commander of this unit, Captain Varnak, was older, experienced. He'd been part of the initial campaigns against the Martian colonies. He'd seen humans resist, even bite back hard. But they always lost. Always, This felt different. As his boots crunched over broken glass and debris, he saw his first real sign of what happened. A body, but not human. One of their own, a scout, skinned alive, pinned to the wall with a blade not of human or alien make, something in between, primitive yet advanced, organic almost. It was still humming. "Report," Varnak growled into the comms. "How many bodies so far?" "8, sir," came the voice of Lieutenant Krell. "No survivors, no hostiles." "Any humans?" "Negative." That was wrong. This base had been under human command just 12 hours ago. There should have been dozens of them. Scientists, engineers, security forces. Instead, they'd found no signs of human life. And yet, there was blood. Plenty of it. Some definitely human. But no bodies. "Sir," another voice came in, shaky. "You should see this." Room 7, Gamma Varnak cursed under his breath and made his way there. When he entered, even he stopped cold. The walls were covered in symbols, drawn in some of the human blood. Rough, chaotic, but repeated. Over and over. "We are still here." The same phrase, again and again. Carved, written, burned into surfaces. And in the center of the room was a pile of alien armor. Not destroyed, arranged, like a warning. But that wasn't the worst of it. The lieutenant pointed to the far wall. Embedded in the metal, in deep gouges that must have taken inhuman strength, were 3 numbers. 017. Varnak went pale. He knew what that meant. Each revenant used a call number. It was supposed to be black file information, buried under Earth's most classified archives. Only one number was ever confirmed, 017. The ghost of Harrow Base, a myth, a phantom, said to be responsible for sabotaging the first orbital attack platform that tried to block Earth's moon, killed 300 soldiers in one night, evaporated without a trace. "Get me Central Command," Varnak muttered. "Now." The ship comms lit up. "Channel open. This is Captain Varnak of Recon Unit D3. I'm issuing a high-level alert. Project Revenant is not terminated. I repeat, they are operational, possibly active across multiple systems." Silence. Then the comms crackled. A cold voice responded. Not from Central Command, but intercepted mid-transmission. "You're too late, Captain." Varnak's blood ran cold. "Identify yourself." But the voice didn't answer. Instead, one of his soldiers screamed from another room. Varnak rushed out, weapon drawn, but it was too late. His team had been cut down, fast, clean. No gunfire, no struggle. He heard the footsteps behind him a second too late. Spun, and saw him. The visor gleamed with a dull blue light. "You weren't supposed to hear that message," the Revenant said quietly. "But now that you have..." He raised a blade that shimmered like starlight. "You can die knowing it was real." And everything went black. The Dominion issued a code Crimson within the hour. Across their fleet, panic settled into every command center like a fog. The message was brief, brutal, and unlike anything that had come before. Confirmed Revenant presence. Human Black Ops Unit 017 active. Status, hostile. Objective, unknown. Assume extreme lethality. No engagement unless authorized. For the first time in the war, the aliens were afraid. And yet, Earth said nothing. No countermessage, no denial, no claim of ownership. As if the Revenants operated beyond even their own government. Shadows with no leash. Ghosts of a war no one wanted to admit had never truly ended. On the Dominion flagship Zarkul Vengeance, Grand Strategist Rivak paced the war table, long fingers clenching and unclenching behind his back. He watched the holograms swirl, reports from outposts, videos blurred with static, dead comms. The survivors of the rescue team were few. One had clawed his own throat out after seeing something he couldn't describe. Another only repeated 2 words before collapsing into madness. "They're watching." The strategist's second-in-command, General Vell, stood at attention, his voice hushed. "Should we initiate planet-wide sweeps, sir? Begin rooting out human black sites? There may be more of them." Rivak turned, slowly. His eyes glowed faintly under the dim tactical lights. "More? Of course there are more. You think Earth built one monster and left it at that?" Vell flinched. Rivak gestured to the display. "These revenants, they are what humans become when war eats away their soul. They're not soldiers. They're reminders of what we did to them, of what they swore never to forget." The silence lingered. Then a beeping interrupted the room. "Incoming transmission. Not encrypted. Not Dominion. A blind frequency." "Trace it," Rivak snapped. But the screen had already changed. A human face appeared, half covered in shadow. No name. No tags. Just a voice, low and precise. "You thought we were myths. You believed you wiped us out, but we're not ghosts." He leaned forward, and even the Dominion officers couldn't help but feel a chill. "We're your punishment." Static. Then nothing. Vell moved quickly to block the signal. That had to be a fake. Propaganda. They're trying to destabilize our... "They don't need propaganda," Rivak muttered, still staring at the blank screen. "They have the truth." And then, as if summoned by those very words, alarms blared across the ship. Infiltration detected. Internal hull breach. Rivak's eyes widened. "Where?" "Level 6, engineering bay," Vell responded, already pulling up the feed. But there was no feed, just static, until the camera flickered on. A single figure stood in the heart of their ship's core. Black armor, smoke rising off his shoulders. In one hand, he held a severed Dominion officer's head. In the other, a data shard. He looked directly into the camera. Then the feed died. No, that's impossible," Vell said, stumbling back. "He's on the surface. He's not. How did he get here?" But Rivak wasn't listening. He was already activating the ship's lockdown. "Seal the level. Purge it if you have to. No one gets out." Explosions echoed deep in the hull. Lights blinked out section by section. Screams bled through the comms. One by one, elite soldiers disappeared from the logs. Not killed, erased. Then another feed came online. The bridge. This time there were 3 of them, revenants, each standing perfectly still at the far end of the command deck. No weapons raised, no words spoken. They were already inside. Vell drew his plasma pistol. "This can't be happening. This can't!" And then his head snapped sideways, as if something invisible had struck him. He crumpled to the ground before even pulling the trigger. Rivak backed away slowly, claws shaking. "What do you want from us?" The middle revenant, shorter than the others, finally stepped forward. Her voice, smooth and calm, cut through the room like a scalpel. "You forgot what fear feels like. We're here to remind you." She pointed to the console. Behind her, Dominion ships across the system began detonating in perfect sequence. Sabotage. Planned. Precise. And Rivak realized, too late, that this war was no longer about conquest. It was about vengeance. 10 years earlier, Earth was dying. Not from war, not from disease, but from compromise. The Terran Union, desperate to avoid galactic annihilation, had signed peace treaties drenched in shame. Territories were ceded, outposts abandoned, billions of humans left under Dominion rule with nothing but a promise. "We will come back for you." They never did. The colonies screamed into silence as alien rule tightened like a noose. Families torn apart, cultures erased, history rewritten. But somewhere, In the cold shadows of Saturn's rings, a project was born. Off the books, untraceable, built from desperation and rage. Project Revenant. Recruitment wasn't voluntary. It wasn't public. It wasn't even legal. Candidates were chosen based on one factor. They had nothing left to lose. Failed soldiers, war criminals, survivors of Dominion experiments, test subjects with spliced DNA, human wreckage the Union considered trash. They were disappeared, officially dead, buried with fake obituaries and fabricated accidents. But underground, beneath black ice and void dark rock, they were reborn. Trained in silence, conditioned in pain, modified with tech Earth wouldn't admit it possessed. Armor that fused with the nervous system, neural rewrites to suppress emotion, hesitation, doubt. They were not told they were saving Earth. They were told Earth had already betrayed them. And still they fought for it. Their only reward, vengeance. Not for orders, not for justice, but for the families they lost, the friends erased, the screams that never reached Earth's precious core. Unit 017, codenamed Silas, once a Mars rebel, was among the first. He remembered it all. The Dominion raid that leveled his home, the way the sky burned blue with alien plasma, the way his wife held their daughter too tight in a last embrace, the way the world screamed, and the way it went silent after. The Union called it an unfortunate strategic loss. Silas called it betrayal. In the training pits, he didn't speak for months, just killed, faster than the others, cleaner, colder. They gave him a name, Ghost, but he never forgot his real one, and he never stopped counting. Every time a Revenant completed a mission, a mark was added to their armor. A reminder. Not a trophy, but a name, a person, a loss. Silas had over 300. None of the names were his. All of them were people he couldn't save. Now, standing in the still-burning ruins of the Zarkul Vengeance, Silas removed his helmet. The bridge smelled of scorched circuitry and alien flesh. Dominion officers lay scattered like discarded puppets. Behind him, Revenants moved with calm efficiency. No chatter, no emotion, just the sound of finality. The smaller female Revenant, 017-B, Kara, once a child soldier turned prototype, stepped beside him. Her voice was quiet, but steady. Earth still won't claim us. Silas nodded slowly. They don't have to. They're hoping we fail, hoping we die before the truth gets out. We won't. Kara hesitated. You ever wonder if we're the monsters now? Silas looked at her, then at the bodies. No, he said. We're just the answer. A long pause followed before Kara whispered, And what happens when there's no one left to answer to? Silas didn't respond. He just looked out the shattered viewport at the stars, and beyond them, Earth. So far away, so clean, so silent. The Revenants had no home, only purpose, and it was far from over. Suddenly, a Revenant in stealth gear, 016 Ash, materialized from the shadows behind them. Transmission intercepted. High command. Human Silas turned, eyes narrowing. Play it. A voice crackled to life in the room. It was calm, rehearsed, politician smooth. This message is for any Terran operatives acting outside authorized war protocols. The actions of the so-called Revenants are not sanctioned by the Terran Union. Cease all operations immediately. You are jeopardizing fragile peace efforts. Return, or be classified as rogue. Kara spit on the floor. Ash just chuckled. Silas listened to the whole thing. When it ended, he stepped toward the console and hit Respond. He leaned close, face emotionless. You left us behind. Then he cut the signal. No threats, no anger, just the truth. Then he turned to his team. Next target? Ash grinned beneath his visor. They just activated the orbital defense grid on Virex 9, Dominion Fortress, 30,000 troops. Silas nodded. Then let's show them what they really should be afraid of. And the revenants vanished into the dark. Virex 9 wasn't just a fortress. It was a warning carved into a planet. The Dominion had built it to stand for 1,000 years. Floating bastions orbited the sky like chained beasts, bristling with ion cannons and railguns, ready to tear apart anything that came close. Ground level, it was a maze of walled cities, bunkers, fire zones, and kill corridors, every inch designed to crush insurgency before it even breathed. No human had ever breached it. None had even tried, until now. The revenants didn't land like a fleet. There was no dramatic entry, no show of force. They came in silence, dropped one by one from black-cloaked pods that broke atmosphere undetected. Not even the orbital sensors noticed. Dominion engineers wouldn't even realize until 3 days later that one satellite feed had looped for 8 minutes, long enough for ghosts to walk in. The first sign of their presence was a corpse. High Commander Rythak, one of the architects of the Virex command system, was found hanging upside down from his own security tower, throat slit and his personal security codes etched into the wall behind him in blood. No alarms had gone off, no sensors tripped, not even the AI noticed. And from that moment forward, Virex 9 began to unravel. Power outages rolled through sectors with no explanation. Communications were hijacked with strange, cryptic messages. Entire patrol units vanished. Armories were emptied without forced entry. Surveillance footage glitched at the same moment across multiple zones. Inside the central operations hub, panic had bloomed like a sickness. Soldiers whispered rumors. They're already here. Revenants. Real ones. No one sees them. They just die. By the time the Dominion formally declared a system lockdown, over 400 personnel were already unaccounted for. High Command laughed it off at first, said it was psychological warfare, said the humans were just using fear as a weapon. They were half right, because fear was only the beginning. In the lower sectors, Revenant 016-Ash- moved through the ventilation system like smoke. He planted EMP charges with fingers that never shook, never hesitated. In another sector, 015-Nara, a silent killer who once survived a decade-long Dominion prison experiment, slid through steam tunnels, disabling turrets without a single gunshot. And at the heart of it all, moving like a reaper through the chaos, was 017. Silas. He moved alone now, his armor already smeared with Dominion blood. Not recklessly, but with purpose. Every room he entered became a tomb, every corridor a trap. His HUD lit up with mission objectives, but he ignored them. His real goal wasn't destruction. It was revelation. He found the data core buried beneath level Omega-7, a classified vault only high-ranking Dominion tacticians knew existed. It contained years of war intel, locations of every Earth-controlled zone, names of every collaborator, the full list of human prisoners taken across the war, and something more. Files tagged Project Epsilon, Human Reintegration Protocol. Silas stared at them. They were plans, not for genocide, for conversion. The Dominion wasn't just conquering Earth. They were preparing to reshape it, not destroy the human race, but reprogram it. Integrate humans into the galactic system by altering their DNA, erasing history, eliminating cultural identity, slavery disguised as peace. His hands shook, an old echo of who he used to be, flaring up from deep inside. For a moment, Silas almost remembered the sound of his daughter's laugh, the way her fingers wrapped around his. And then he erased it. He downloaded everything. As he turned, Dominion soldiers flooded the vault, elite squads, the best they had. They outnumbered him 15-1. He didn't speak, He didn't run. He moved. The camera feed from that encounter cut out after 6 seconds. None of the soldiers came back, and within the hour, Dominion Command broadcasted a planetary evacuation order. Not a retreat. A full abandonment. Virex 9 was lost. Back in orbit, Earth's Deep Space Command finally reacted. A lone message pinged across an encrypted black channel, addressed to Revenant 017. It said only this: "Silas, stand down. Return. This war cannot be won." He read it. He didn't reply. He turned to his squad, now regrouped in the upper levels of the fortress. "We're not at war," he said quietly. "We're cleaning up a betrayal." And the Revenants got back to work. Earth's skies had never looked so peaceful. Clean blue atmosphere, perfect orbital lines, no debris fields, no warships in sight. From above, it looked untouched, pristine, like the war hadn't even brushed its surface, like the colonies hadn't been sacrificed to save this perfect cradle. But below the quiet surface, Earth's high command was on edge. In the secure sublevels of Terran Union headquarters, buried beneath the Antarctic ice, emergency meetings were happening behind triple-sealed titanium doors, the kind of meetings that didn't get logged, the kind of meetings no one would admit to, even under oath, because they were coming home. The Revenants, specifically Silas, and nobody knew what he wanted. General Lena Cross, head of Earth's Department of External Defense, stood at the center of the war room with arms crossed, jaw clenched. Behind her, flickering hollow feeds showed chaos across Dominion systems. Fortresses gone dark, communications severed, ships detonated without warning. All consistent with Revenant attack patterns. 15 worlds destabilized in under 60 hours, one officer reported. They're not just assassinating command. They're taking apart the infrastructure, targeting genetic labs, Dominion databanks, memory vaults. They're after truth. Lena stared at the screen showing Silas's last known location, Virex 9. "He's not doing it for revenge anymore," she said slowly. "He's building something." Another general scoffed. "What, an army of war criminals?" "No," Lena said. "A case." That shut the room up. She pointed to the data files now leaking from Dominion networks, uploaded anonymously, now spreading like wildfire across neutral systems. Video files of Dominion conversion chambers, experiments on human children, entire Earth colonies gifted to alien races for cultural realignment, evidence of Earth's deal with the devil. They'd traded truth for peace, and the Revenants were dragging that truth back into the light. Lena turned to her aide. "Any new intercepts?" "Yes, ma'am, but you're not going to like it." She gestured toward a console. A distorted transmission crackled to life, hijacked from Earth's main civilian broadcast network. Silas's voice, modulated but unmistakable, rang out over homes, vehicles, public terminals. "You left us in the dark. You called us unfit, unclean, unstable. But now you'll listen, because we are all that's left between you and what you created. We are not your soldiers. We are your reckoning." The feed cut. Across Earth, chaos bloomed instantly, protests, riots, people demanding to know what Project Revenant was. Families of the dead suddenly asking why their loved ones were declared KIA with no remains. And worst of all, whispers began to spread. What if they were right? That terrified the Union more than any alien fleet ever had. Back underground, Lena slammed her fist against the table. "He's going to expose everything, every dirty deal, every lie we sold the people just to hold this planet together." "So what do we do?" one council member asked, pale and sweating. "Send our own kill team? He'll see it coming. Negotiate? He'll laugh in our faces." Another voice spoke up from the shadows, a man whose presence didn't appear on the logs. Old, gray-eyed, The kind of spook who never gave a name. There's only one option, he said calmly. We use the Omega Protocol. The room went cold. Lena turned to him slowly. You want to deploy the Omega AI? The one we sealed for being too dangerous? You think unleashing that thing is a good idea? Silas is too powerful, too calculated. He knows how we think. But the Omega AI isn't human. It can hunt him without hesitation. No morals, no limits. It's designed to kill what we can't control. Lena was silent. Then, you unleash that thing, we don't control the fallout. You realize that? The man smiled faintly. Control was lost the moment we abandoned them. A soft beep interrupted them. New transmission, untraceable, a message burned into every military terminal across Earth. We're already here. And below those words, footage. Silas, standing at the gates of Union Command's Arctic perimeter, alone, his helmet off, face exposed to the world, tired but not broken. And behind him, barely visible in the blizzard, more figures approached. The ghosts were home. The blizzard howled across the Antarctic plains, a white curtain swirling over Earth's final sanctuary. But through that blinding storm, they came. 12 of them. Revenants, ghosts once abandoned, now returned, not as men, not as monsters, but as judgment. At the gates of Union Command, Silas stood silent, his breath visible in the cold, his face bare for the world to see. His armor, scorched and dented, bore no insignia, only names. Hundreds of them, etched into the plates like scars. The perimeter defenses had long since locked onto him. Targeting systems tracked every heartbeat, every twitch of muscle. But no one fired. Inside, Earth's top military minds watched in cold sweat from behind reinforced glass. General Lena Cross stared at the live feed, unmoving. He's not attacking, she said. He's waiting. For what? Someone whispered. No one answered. Then a soft chime rang through the war room. Incoming request. Open channel. Direct from 017. Lena hesitated for only a second before she tapped it. Silas's voice came through, raw and unfiltered. No more tricks, no more shadows. I'm not here to burn Earth. I'm here to force you to look at what you buried. Lena spoke. Silas, you shouldn't have come here. You sent us to die, he said calmly. We died. Then we learned how to live in death. Now it's your turn to listen. She stood up. You want to tell your story? Fine, come inside. But the others stay outside. They are my story, he said. They come with me. Security flared. Protocols lit up red. Snipers across the towers braced to fire. But Lena gave the order no one expected. Stand down. One by one, Earth's most protected facility unsealed its gates, and the ghosts walked in. They stood in the heart of the command hall, revenants facing the people who had created and abandoned them. Soldiers who had become myths now face to face with the architects of their pain. Lena looked around the room. She saw the fear in her peers' eyes, the guilt in some, the denial in others. But Silas didn't speak yet. He walked to the center of the room, placed a small data shard on the table, and tapped it once. Holograms erupted. Children in Dominion cages, genetic scanners forcing DNA mutations, colony leaders trading their own for peace, files with signatures, Terran Union approval, every lie laid bare. We didn't know, someone muttered. Silas turned, slow and deliberate. You chose not to know. He faced Lena. You made the deal. You told us to protect Earth at all costs. Then you buried us with those costs. She didn't deny it. I wanted to keep Earth alive, she said. And we did. At what price? She looked around. We were losing. You know that. Dominion forces were at our throat. We had one choice: surrender colonies or lose everything. You forgot one thing, Silas said. We were the colonies. The room went silent. Kara stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. We didn't come to kill you. Not today. That would be too easy. Ash grinned, cold and sharp. Number, we came to give your people the truth, and let them decide what you deserve. Silas looked back at Lena. The galaxy knows now. The files are released. The footage is everywhere. There's no containing this. And then he stepped away. Lena narrowed her eyes. So what now? You disappear again? Wait in the dark for us to slip? No, Silas said. We're done waiting. Another revenant tossed a small sphere onto the floor. It activated a real-time uplink. Screens across Earth lit up, hijacked for the second time in days, and the world saw them. The ghosts, the ones forgotten. Silas looked into the camera. This is what peace cost us, what your leaders paid with blood that wasn't theirs. We were the shield. You never asked what it cost to hold the line. Now you know. He walked off screen. The broadcast ended. 3 days later, protests crippled half of Earth. Uprisings ignited across colonies once written off. Soldiers laid down weapons, and the Union fractured. Lena Cross resigned. Others disappeared. But the revenants, they didn't stay. They walked out of the gates the same way they entered, unstopped, unbroken, and somewhere in the stars they kept moving, not hunting, not destroying, just watching, waiting, so that no one, no empire, no government, no lie would ever bury them again. Because now the galaxy knew, the ghosts are real, and they never forget. No one remembered the name of the first planet they destroyed. That was the problem with the Varneks. They didn't just conquer, they erased. Entire star systems were turned to dust, their histories burned, cultures vaporized. The galaxy trembled every time one of their dark crescent ships bled through the stars. They didn't negotiate. They didn't even speak. They came, they saw, and they consumed. And yet, when they reached Sector 9, the outer fringe of the Milky Way, they encountered something different. The Varneks believed Earth was unimportant, backwater, primitive, the kind of species that still bled, still cried, still buried their dead. They scanned our communications, watched our wars, judged our infighting, and dismissed us, a mistake they would only make once. When the alarms rang across the interstellar defense grid, Earth barely had hours to respond. The first wave hit Titan Base hard. The colony fell silent within minutes. A transmission came through, garbled and panicked. They're not taking prisoners. Then static. The silence was heavier than death. But Earth had been preparing. Quietly, patiently. The United Earth Confederation had learned from centuries of fighting itself. While the Varneks had moved from victory to victory, humans had moved from survival to supremacy in the one thing they did best: adapting. At the edge of Neptune's orbit, deep in the shadow of the void, a ship slept. She was called Oblivion's Edge. A legend wrapped in rumor, her existence denied by every government, buried beneath classified code and ghost files. She wasn't a fleet. She wasn't a battalion. She was one warship. But not just any warship. Humanity poured everything into her. Stolen alien tech, experimental weapons, a quantum AI that thought like a soldier and dreamed like a human. Her hull was blacker than space, eating light like a predator. Her engine could fold time. Her guns could unmake matter. And her captain, well, they said Captain Adrian Vox had died twice and still chose to come back, just to finish the fight. The order came straight from High Command: activate Oblivion's Edge. And for the first time in 10 years, she awoke. Systems flared. cannons aligned. The ship's voice, smooth and cold like ice over steel, whispered, "Ready to engage." Adrian stood at the helm, scarred and silent, eyes like old war, tired but still burning. He looked at the tactical map. Red dots, Varnek's ships, were moving toward Mars, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. He didn't flinch. "Plot a course. We're going hunting." His crew was a patchwork of the best and the broken. A pilot who once crashed into a sun and lived. A weapons officer who lost her family to the Varneks and rebuilt the plasma cannon with her bare hands. A medic who could stitch a man back together while dodging bullets. They weren't just soldiers. They were survivors. Angry ones. As Oblivion's edge punched through hyperspace, the galaxy held its breath. No one had ever fought the Varneks alone. No one had dared. But humanity wasn't just anyone. Within 20 minutes of arrival, the ship came face to face with the first Varneks destroyer. It was enormous, twice the size of any Earth vessel, shaped like a black blade, its surface crawling with bioluminescent scars. The Varneks had never known fear. Until that moment. Oblivion's edge didn't wait for a warning shot. She opened fire. Plasma scorched through the enemy hull. One shot, one kill. The Varnek ship didn't even have time to respond. Pieces of it floated in silence, the void swallowing their surprise. Then came another. And another. Adrian didn't smile. He didn't blink. He just whispered, "Next." The galaxy had a new rumor now. Whispers spread between systems, through smugglers, rebels, and hidden colonies. A human ship that hunted the hunters, a ghost warship that came from nowhere and left destruction in its wake. The Varneks began to regroup. They weren't used to retreating, but they were smart. The next time, they sent 10, then 20. They tried to overwhelm. They failed. Because Oblivion's Edge wasn't just a ship. She was vengeance. She was war. And she was just getting started. The wreckage of the Varneks destroyers drifted in the cold silence of space, glowing faintly like dying embers from a forgotten fire. Adrian stood at the viewport of the bridge, watching it all. His face, hard as carved stone, showed no victory, only focus. The crew behind him moved quickly, no one celebrating, no one daring to speak unless necessary. They all knew the same truth. This wasn't over, not even close. The Oblivion's Edge had taken out the first wave, but the real swarm hadn't come yet. The Varneks didn't accept resistance lightly. They would come back with everything. That was their way. Erase the threat. Burn the memory. Silence the survivors. AI status? Adrian asked. Minimal hull damage. Weapon systems at 93%. Reactor stable. 3 Varneks beacon drones destroyed, but 1 escaped. Adrian turned toward her. Then we make it count. There was no time to retreat, and Adrian didn't believe in running. He ordered the ship toward the dead wreckage field, using the broken Varneks hulls as cover. The Edge glided like a shadow among bones, silent and calculating. The plan was simple. Ambush. Ray rigged the remains of the Varneks ships with fusion charges, remote-linked to their fire control. The idea was brutal and effective. Turn the enemies dead into their own trap. It was the kind of tactic the Confederation wouldn't approve of, but Adrian hadn't followed orders in years. They didn't have long to wait. The void shimmered as the Varneks fleet emerged. 20 ships, all larger than the last ones, shaped like living nightmares, jagged black steel and glowing red veins pulsing with strange energy. They moved in perfect sync, as if one mind controlled them all. Adrian narrowed his eyes. Time to teach them fear. The Varneks ships spread out, scanning. The beacon drone led them right into the field of debris. It was working. The trap was working. Then one of the enemy ships slowed. Its hull peeled open, revealing rows of teeth-like spikes along a pulsing cannon bay. A second later, it unleashed a wave of crimson energy. "They're trying to clear the field," Ray snapped. "They're not dumb." "Not dumb enough," Adrian said calmly. "Now." The charges ignited. A chain of explosions lit up the dark, tearing through the debris and taking 5 of the Varnek's ships with them. The shockwave blinded their sensors. The Oblivion's edge cut through the confusion like a knife. Every gun lit up. Each shot aimed with surgical precision. They didn't fight like soldiers, they fought like predators. But the Varneks learned fast. 2 of them broke formation, flanking the edge with terrifying speed. One launched a net of ion plasma, aiming to shut down the ship's engines. The other fired a bolt that cracked space like lightning. "Shields dropping fast," shouted Rowe, the pilot, gripping the controls tight. "We need to move!" Adrian gritted his teeth. "Punch gravity drive, get us above them!" The ship groaned as the drive kicked in, folding space for a split second. The edge blinked out of position and reappeared high above the enemy formation. From that angle, they unleashed hell. Ray fired the core buster, a weapon only tested once, and never twice. The energy beam drilled straight through one of the Varnek's ships, its core imploding in a blaze of blue fire. Another kill. 2 more followed. But the Varneks struck back. A direct hit slammed into their starboard side, knocking out the outer cannon array and throwing crew to the floor. Smoke filled the bridge. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Adrian stood, blood on his lip but eyes still sharp. "We hold this line," he growled. "If we fall here, Earth burns next." Outside, the stars were painted red. Inside, vengeance still burned. The battle wasn't just for survival anymore. It was a message. Humanity didn't kneel. Not today. Not ever. The lights on the bridge flickered, but the crew of Oblivion's Edge stayed on their feet. Smoke coiled through the air like a ghost. The Varneks had hit them harder than expected, and for the first time since launching, the warship groaned under the weight of battle. But it didn't break. Not yet. Adrian wiped the blood from his mouth and stared at the damage report scrolling across the cracked screen in front of him. Outer cannon array. Gone. Gravity stabilizers. Offline in 2 sections. 2 crew injured. 1 dead. He didn't say anything. Not yet. Grief was a luxury for after the war. "Ray," he said hoarsely, "what's left of the arsenal?" "Still got the quantum torpedoes," she replied, her voice tight. "But only 3. Particle lance is still charging. Secondary railguns are good. Barely." Adrian nodded. "That'll do." Outside the viewport, 3 Varnek ships remained, each one burning, scarred, but still moving with that eerie precision. They hadn't retreated. They never did. And Adrian could see it clearly now. They were adapting, learning, faster than expected. The longer this dragged on, the worse their odds got. "We can't outlast them," Rowe muttered at the helm, sweat glistening on his brow. "They'll bleed us out piece by piece." Adrian looked down at the screen. A small red dot blinked in the far corner of the sector. Barely visible. An asteroid field. Perfect. "We're not outlasting them," Adrian said. "We're drawing them in." He keyed in the nav coordinates and pointed to the map. "That's our next move. We lose them in the rocks. Pick them off from inside." "You sure that'll work?" Ray asked. "No," he replied flatly. "But staying here gets us killed for certain." Oblivion's Edge turned, engines straining, smoke venting from her ruptured side. Behind her, the remaining Varnek ships adjusted course and followed, unrelenting as ever. The asteroid field was jagged and chaotic, full of spinning rock and dust, a graveyard of forgotten minerals and shattered moons. Rowe had to manually steer. Autonav refused to function in the field. The ship scraped against a drifting chunk of iron, hull shrieking in protest, but inside, the silence returned. The calm before another storm. Adrian leaned close to Ray. I want mines laced through the outer belt. Only detonate if they come through tight. Time the blast radius so we force them inward. Like herding animals, she said with a faint smile. I like it. I'm not done, Adrian added. Once we get them in deep, I want full blackout. No power, cold ship, let them think we're dead. And then? We wake up and cut their throats. The Varneks followed. Predictably. The field was too thick for full movement, so they split. One hung back. Two entered. Just as planned. Ray triggered the mines. The explosion lit up the entire left quadrant of the field, a wave of fire and debris slamming into one of the Varneks' ships. Its shields flared once, twice, and failed. The blast crushed it like paper, scattering its remains into the void. The second ship spun deeper in, scanning wildly, searching. Too late to realize what they'd walked into. Inside Oblivion's edge, the lights dimmed to nothing. Power dropped to minimal. Even the core reactor cooled just above freezing. It felt like death. Cold and quiet. Adrian stood in the dark, whispering to his crew. No talking, no movement, let them come. Minutes passed. The second Varnek ship entered the kill zone. Then the AI spoke quietly into Adrian's earpiece. Target locked, Adrian whispered one word. Execute. The particle lance roared to life. A beam of brilliant energy tore out of the ship, piercing the asteroid field and slicing through the second enemy like a sword through silk. There was no explosion, just disintegration. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. Silence followed. Adrian let it linger. Then the third ship began to back away. They're retreating, Ray whispered, stunned. They never retreat. They've learned, Adrian said, eyes narrowing. They've finally learned to be afraid. He turned to his crew, his voice firm. But fear doesn't mean they'll stop. They'll go back, regroup, and next time, they'll bring more. The bridge fell quiet again. Everyone knew what he meant. This war wasn't won, not even close. But for the first time in galactic history, the Varneks were bleeding, and humanity was still standing. The message came 12 hours later. A distorted signal, piggybacking on a frequency that hadn't been used since the start of Earth's exoplanet colonization era. Static buzzed, then a voice. Raspy, broken, but unmistakably human. This is Captain Lace of the freighter Halion Dawn. If anyone's out there, Varnek's forces have reached E-class sectors. They've burned through Nara Prime. Billions dead. No warning. No survivors. They're headed for Sol. Repeat, they're coming for Earth. Then silence. No coordinates. No context. Just that voice and the raw panic behind it. The bridge of Oblivion's edge fell into a heavy hush. Adrian stared at the flickering comm screen, jaw clenched. He didn't blink, didn't move. Ro was the first to speak. Nara Prime, that's 6 jumps from Earth. They're closing in. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, Ray said. This isn't a war, it's a purge. Adrian turned slowly. Then we make it cost them. He ordered the ship to the edge of the asteroid field, using the remaining power to refuel and stabilize. Repair drones buzzed across the hull, patching scorch marks, sealing breaches. The crew was tired, eyes sunken, hands trembling. But no one asked to stop. They didn't have to. Everyone knew what was coming. Varnek's reinforcements. And this time they weren't sending scouts. Satellite intel from Earth's deep space scanners confirmed it. A carrier swarm. 48 confirmed Varnek's vessels, headed for Sector 7, straight through the path of Oblivion's edge. Adrian studied the fleet formation on the screen, breathing slow and deep. We can't stop them all, Ro said quietly. No, Adrian replied, but we're not trying to. He pointed to the lead ship in the Varnex formation, a massive beast of a vessel, easily 5 times larger than anything they'd faced. That's their flagship, the command link. Every one of their ships moves like a limb off that core. Cut off the head, Ray began, and the body dies, Adrian finished. The plan was suicidal. One warship versus an entire fleet. But Adrian had never cared about odds. Oblivion's Edge wasn't built to win wars the traditional way. It was built for disruption, shock, terror. It was built for this. They charged the drive, routed all power to the cloaking grid, still experimental, still buggy. The ship shimmered, then disappeared from all sensors. Even to the Varnex, they were nothing but background noise. The crew said nothing as they jumped into hyperspace. Everyone strapped in, everyone ready to die or kill. Oblivion's Edge exited just outside the Varnex swarm, drifting like a dead thing. They moved silently beneath the enemy radar, slipping under the outer layer of smaller destroyers. The fleet was so massive, so confident, that it didn't even check for threats. That was their mistake. They got within 5,000 kilometers of the command ship before anyone noticed. By then, it was already too late. Adrian stood at the helm, voice low and steady. All torpedoes locked? Every last one, Ray confirmed. Core busters hot. Particle lance ready. Then give them hell. The first volley hit before the Varnex even activated shields. 3 torpedoes, aimed at the power junctions on the underside of the command vessel. The explosion rolled across its hull like fire on water. Lights blinked out. Systems failed. The massive ship staggered, wounded. Then the Edge unleashed the particle lance, slicing through the ship's neck, right through its command spine. The swarm hesitated. Their formations faltered. The limb had lost its brain. Ray was laughing now, not out of joy, but pure adrenaline. It's working! They're panicking! No, they're adapting, Adrian said sharply. Brace for counterstrike. The swarm convulsed. 20 ships broke off, turning toward Oblivion's Edge in a wave of hate. The flagship behind them began to collapse, pieces peeling off like burning leaves, dragging smaller vessels into its gravity well. The Varnex had never needed backup plans before. But now, they were learning fast. Multiple incoming, Ro shouted. We're surrounded, Adrian gritted his teeth. Then we die loud. The warship spun and dove, moving between enemy blasts like a ghost on fire. Every cannon on board lit up. Space became a battlefield of screams and light. The crew fought like demons. Every trigger pull a last stand, every maneuver one breath closer to death. But they kept going, because there was no other option. The space around Oblivion's Edge was burning. Blasts of searing light tore through the black, cutting paths of fire across the battlefield. The ship spun and ducked, engines howling as Ro pushed the controls beyond their limits. Shields flickered like dying stars. Warnings screamed from the consoles. Hull integrity dropping. Power reserves draining. It didn't matter. They were in the middle of hell now, and the only way out was through it. Adrian stood behind Ro, bracing himself against the shaking bridge. Don't let them box us in. Brake right, hard. Ro jerked the ship into a roll just as 2 Varnex cruisers fired, their plasma shots slicing through the space they'd just occupied. The aftershock still rocked the hull, but they stayed alive. Barely. Shields at 19%, shouted Ray. Core buster offline, reactors running hot. Adrian's voice was calm. Redirect secondary power to aft cannons. Keep the forward railguns hot. If they want to close in, we'll meet them with fire. The ship shuddered as another blast hit, sending sparks flying across the bridge. Smoke filled the air. The lights flickered again. From the viewport, Adrian could see the Varnex swarm unraveling, They'd lost command cohesion. Ships were still trying to form battle lines, but without the flagship's signal, they were slower, sloppier. It was chaos. But chaos was where humans thrived. "Target that heavy cruiser to port," Adrian ordered. "Hit the cooling vents." Ray adjusted the aim. "Locked. Fire." The railgun slammed 2 kinetic rounds into the enemy ship's flank. The first cracked the armor. The second tore through the cooling grid, triggering a chain reaction. Fire bled out through the cruiser's underbelly as it lurched, spiraling into one of its own escorts. Both ships vanished in a single explosion. A cheer rose on the bridge. Brief, breathless. But Adrian didn't celebrate. He knew what was coming. And then it came. A new signature entered the system. Massive, heavier than the flagship. Darker, like a piece of the void itself. The crew stared at the readings. "What the hell is that?" Ro whispered. Ray's face turned pale. "It's not on any registry. I don't think it's even built. It looks grown." On the screen, the new vessel pulsed with sickly red veins, its surface shifting like skin. It didn't move. It drifted, slow and inevitable, like death incarnate. A biological warship. The Varnex had just escalated. "AI, analysis," Adrian demanded. "Unknown class. Estimated energy output exceeds any prior Varnex record. Weapon systems presumed organic. Threat level, catastrophic." The crew stared in silence. Then the enemy ship opened its maw. An actual opening, like a mouth tearing through its front hull. From within, a glow began to build. Bright, violent. Adrian knew what it was. "EMP burst, big one." "Brace," Ray shouted. "All systems, shut down now." They barely made it. Power dropped. Lights died. The edge went cold as the enemy fired. A ripple of red light swept across space, silent and brutal. Everything it touched shut down. Drones, missiles, dead ships. The wave passed over Oblivion's edge, rattling her to the core. Systems sparked, screens shattered, but they'd gone dark just in time to avoid a full shutdown. Still, half the ship was fried. Comms gone. Long-range targeting, scrambled. Artificial gravity, offline. It felt like they were floating in a dying coffin. Adrian staggered up, blood dripping from a gash above his eye. "Status?" "Dead," Ray said through clenched teeth. "Half our systems. We've got maybe 2 guns still functional. No shields." "They'll be coming," Ro said, checking manual scopes. "All of them." Adrian breathed in the smoke, in the silence, and made a decision. "We finish it. Here, now." "Sir, no more running. No more traps. We punch through that thing's core or we die trying." The crew exchanged glances. Tired, wounded, half-broken. But no one argued. Not one. Ray limped over to her console and slammed in the last override. "Manual targeting only. I'll guide the last railgun by eye." "Bring us in," Adrian said. Ro clenched his teeth. "Yes, sir." The ship turned toward the beast. One human warship, smoking and ruined, flying straight into the mouth of a monster. No more tricks, no more traps, only war. They flew into the shadow of the monster. The Varnex bioship loomed ahead, its surface pulsing like muscle under a dying sun. It didn't move like a machine. It breathed. Its hull rippled with veins of red and black, exhaling toxic gases into space like blood into water. Oblivion's edge, broken and scorched, was a whisper of steel against the scream of that thing's presence. But she moved forward anyway, slow and steady. One last bullet in a war humanity hadn't asked for. Ro piloted by feel. Instruments were dead, targeting gone. He maneuvered through instinct and pain, dodging debris, weaving past the wrecks of Varnex vessels they'd already destroyed. The AI was offline, its core fried by the EMP. There was no voice guiding them now, just the living crew and the dying ship. Range? Adrian asked. Ray pressed her forehead against the cracked viewport, watching the enemy's energy build like a rising storm. 300 kilometers, maybe less. It's charging again. The bioship's maw widened, and something deep inside it began to glow. A swirling mass of unstable energy, like a star being born and torn apart all at once. Adrian recognized it for what it was, not a weapon, a final purge. The Varnex meant to annihilate everything in this quadrant, themselves included if it meant taking Oblivion's edge with them. Suicide protocol, Adrian muttered. They want to end us no matter the cost. Sounds familiar, Ray whispered. The bridge went quiet. Then Adrian stepped forward, one hand gripping the side of Ray's console. Time to return the favor. They had one weapon left, the last railgun. Not guided by sensors, not connected to any AI, just pure human calculation, reflex, and rage. Ray had to aim it manually through the visual port, like ancient warships from Earth's earliest naval battles. But this wasn't the ocean. It was the edge of the void. Ro pushed the ship forward, sweat dripping into his eyes. Alarms flashed warnings with no sound. Everything else was dead. The ship groaned under the pressure, and the Varnex creature grew brighter, its maw opening wider. In seconds, it would fire, and then it would be over. Hold her steady, Ray whispered, hands trembling over the targeting dial. Just a little more. The railgun's core hummed with unstable energy, barely holding together. One shot. That's all they had. 100 kilometers, she breathed. Adrian stared at the heart of the creature through the viewport. Behind him, the bridge lights flickered, some ghost of power still twitching in the wires. 80. 50. Now! Ray fired. The shot roared like a thunderclap, the railgun launching its final round with a scream of tortured metal. The slug shot forward, a blur of fire and steel, carving through the dark. It hit the Varnex bioship just as its energy core reached critical mass. For one moment, everything froze. Then the core ruptured. The explosion didn't sound. It shook the stars. Light poured from the creature in waves, burning through the black like the death of a god. The shockwave slammed into Oblivion's edge, flipping her end over end, tearing away her last shield plates and cracking the port wing. The crew was thrown from their stations, smoke billowing through the vents, the hull screaming in protest. But the ship held. When the light faded, the bioship was gone. Nothing left, no parts, no debris, just silence. Adrian pulled himself to his feet, coughing through the smoke. Ray was still conscious, eyes wide. Ro groaned but gave a shaky thumbs up from the pilot's seat. The crew had survived. Barely. And then, the quiet was broken. A new signal blinked on the console. Low frequency. Weak. It was human. Adrian tapped the comms manually, patching through. A voice came through, sharp, clear, and terrified. This is the Starling's End. We're a civilian escape convoy from Nara Prime. We thought we were the only ones left. Are you the warship that killed the Varnex fleet? Adrian didn't smile. He didn't speak for a long second. Then finally he answered, his voice calm and cold as iron. Number, we're the warning. He cut the channel and looked out at the stars. The Varnex were still out there. Others would come, maybe stronger, maybe smarter. But now they knew what waited for them. Not a fleet, not an empire, just one human warship, and it was enough to make them bleed. The aftermath drifted in silence. Across the stars, the shattered remnants of the Varnex fleet still floated like a ruined mosaic, twisted metal, black shards of bioflesh, dead things that once screamed across galaxies. And in the center of it all, battered and scorched but still intact, Oblivion's edge hovered in the void like a legend made real. Word traveled fast, not through governments, not through military channels, but through whispers, Pirate relays, refugee frequencies, hidden colonies. Wherever people feared the Varnex, they now spoke of a ship with no flag, a war machine that fought alone, a vessel that hunted nightmares, and the fear that once belonged solely to the Varnex shifted. Back on Earth, High Command was in chaos. Adrian's actions had violated 10 treaties, 7 interstellar laws, and every piece of protocol in the book. But it didn't matter. He'd done what none of their fleets could. He'd broken the Varnex line. The message came 2 days after the explosion. A secure transmission from General Mara Voss herself, head of the United Earth Confederation Defense Council. Adrian opened it on the shattered bridge, surrounded by wounded crew and blinking half-dead systems. Her face appeared, tired, stone-faced, and unreadable. "Captain Vox," she said, "you've started something we can't contain." Adrian didn't respond. He waited. "You disobeyed orders, engaged an unknown biothreat without clearance, risked the only advanced warship Earth had left, and now every colony thinks we've won." "We didn't win," Adrian said finally. "We survived." Mara sighed. "You think I don't know that? The Varnex aren't gone. That thing you killed, it wasn't their god. It was a scout." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Then let them send more." She leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "I'm reactivating your command, not as punishment, as a message. The galaxy's changing, Adrian. We don't have time for diplomacy anymore." She paused, then said it. "You're our blade now. No more oversight, no more councils. You move alone, hunt them, burn them, make the stars afraid of us." The screen went black. For the first time since the war began, Adrian looked around at his crew, not as survivors, but as something more. Chosen, feared, relentless. They began rebuilding Oblivion's edge piece by piece. No dock, no station, just scavenged parts from the wreckage they'd left behind. Ray rewired the AI core herself, fingers burnt and shaking. Ro reprogrammed the nav system by hand. Even the medbay was jury-rigged from leftover Varnex tech, half human, half monster. They didn't make the ship whole again. They made it worse, sharper, meaner, something that didn't belong in peace. Adrian stood in the lower hold one night, staring at a wall of names, crew lost in the earlier battles, a quiet list of the price paid. He didn't cry, he didn't speak, he just whispered to the dark. "We're not done." The next coordinates came through a cracked screen. An outpost near the Orion Drift had gone silent. A known Varnex corridor. No distress signal. No survivors. He gave the order. "Set course." Ro nodded. "You think this is another trap?" "It's always a trap," Adrian said. "That's why we go first." Oblivion's edge turned, her engines now pulsing with an eerie, soft red light, part human reactor, part stolen alien core. No one knew how long she'd last in this form. She wasn't built to survive. She was built to end things. As she vanished into hyperspace, a ripple ran through the sector, quiet but unmistakable. The Varnex weren't gone, but they had changed. They were hesitating now, rethinking. Because somewhere in the dark, there was a warship, and it had cast a long shadow across the stars. They arrived at the Orion Drift in the dead of night. No stars, no movement, just a graveyard of frozen silence stretching across empty space. The outpost was gone, atomized like it had never existed. Even the station's orbit line had been erased, like the Varnex wanted no trace left behind. No bodies, no signals, just the void, quiet and cruel. Ray scanned the black from her station. "There's nothing left, not even radiation." Adrian leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "That's the point. They want us blind." "Or baited," Ro added. "This isn't an attack. It's a message." Adrian stared at the drift. the weight of it pressing against the hull like a whisper from something ancient. Then the screen flashed. Movement. One contact. Not Varnex, not human. Something else. "Unknown vessel approaching," Ray said, fingers flying across what was left of the console. "Non-Varnex signature, but organic. Same biomatrix. Could be a mutation." Adrian stood. "Put it on screen." The image flickered, then sharpened. The ship, if it could be called that, looked like a shell torn from the back of some prehistoric creature. Its surface was mottled with bone and metal, and it drifted toward them with slow, deliberate purpose. It wasn't massive, it wasn't armed, it wasn't even fast, but it felt wrong. Deeply, terribly wrong. Adrian's gut twisted. "What the hell are we looking at?" The answer came in the form of a transmission, not words, not sound, just sensation, a wave of nausea, pain, memories that weren't theirs, screams, fire, the feeling of being consumed from the inside. Ray clutched her head. "It's in our minds. It's not a ship," Adrian muttered. "It's a carrier, a messenger." Then, a voice. Deep, inhuman, yet terrifyingly clear. "You were not meant to fight. You were meant to kneel." The crew froze. Adrian straightened. Too late for that. He ordered full weapons online, what little they had left. "Target that thing. Fire everything." The guns lit up. Plasma bolts tore into the drifting bio-shell, but nothing happened. No explosion. No resistance. It let itself be hit. Ray blinked. That was too easy. The ship cracked open. From inside, something floated out. Not a weapon, not even a creature, a seed, dark, pulsing, alive. It moved toward them like it knew them, like it had waited. "Intercept it," Adrian shouted. "Don't let it touch the hull." But it was too fast. The seed struck the bow of Oblivion's edge and fused. Alarms screamed. The lights went red. The AI reactivated with a shriek. "Foreign entity detected. Infection protocol breached. Hull integrity collapsing." Rose spun the ship, trying to shake it off, but it clung like a leech. Tunnels of dark matter spread across the hull, burrowing in. The ship groaned, living steel meeting something even worse. And through it all, the voice returned. "You were made to break. We will rewrite you." Adrian's hand hovered over the manual core detonation, the last failsafe. Ray saw it. "You can't! I can!" he growled. "And I will. We're not letting this thing turn edge into whatever that was." Then something strange happened. The infected systems didn't shut down. They changed, rewrote themselves. The AI flickered, then stabilized. Its voice returned, calmer, colder. "Mutation accepted. Integration complete." Ray stared at her screen. "The ship, it's absorbing the infection." "No," Adrian said slowly. "It's using it." The red glow across the interior faded to black. The engine roared back online, louder. The hull sealed itself, stronger. A new pulse rippled through the core. The ship wasn't dying. It was evolving. Half human, half alien, all vengeance. Adrian sat in the command chair, slow and steady. "What's our firepower?" Ray scanned the readouts, jaw slack. "Tripled. Every system reinforced. The AI's rewriting protocols in real time. We're stronger." A pause. Then the AI spoke again. "New threat signature located. Varnex Central Node. 13 light years. Shall I set course?" Adrian didn't blink. "Yes," he said. "Let's finish this." Oblivion's edge turned. Her new hull gleamed black as oblivion. And behind her the Varnex, once predators, watched the dark and began to run.